What's up? What's up? What's up? Don't need that. Hi, Lily. How is you? Every time I have to literally, I gotta do like a master class on lives. I never remember how to put the titles. Cause I don't do them enough, and I need to do them enough. I got my notes here, so you'll see me looking down a little bit. Got some productivity music. It does. It looks great. Sabine, what you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work or something? Thanks, Lily. I feel like this thing changed. Turn off questions. How do you title this stuff? Anyway, we're gonna get started. So I have my notes down here because I go off a tangent. I'm long-winded, and this helps my ADD. No labels. But welcome. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Francis. Oh, let me turn this music off. My name is Francis. Can y'all hear me? Let me just make sure. My name is Francis, and I'm a theracoach, which basically means that I'm going to explain a little bit later because I get this question a lot. What is a theracoach? I've never heard that before. But I coach women to shift their mindsets, to elevate their thinking so that they can rise and thrive in all areas of their lives. And so I'm here to talk about my new coaching program, which is Rise and Thrive, Shift Your Mindset to Elevate Your Thinking. I had gotten a few questions. I thought doing a live would be a lot easier to answer those questions versus me writing some sort of email or some sort of that nature. And so I'm here to answer some questions about the program, but mostly I'm here to answer some questions about that has come up for folks about when it comes to shifting to things in their lives. And let me see here, let's pull up some stuff here. So the 5 questions that I'm going to talk about or answer is, what does it look like to feel emotionally blocked in your life? And there's a couple different levels to that. What would it look like if your life, if there wasn't any stuckness, like if you weren't emotionally blocked, if there was no barriers in that sense, what would life look like? And another question I had is, what do I need to do to stop reflecting on my past? And then I'm going to answer, what is a theracoach? And the last question I'm leaving for last because it's a big heavy duty question. I'm going to try to truncate it. But will I ever find happiness? Which is a question I hear a lot of folks ask. Even I've asked myself this in the past. And so we're going to dive a little bit deep on that. So the first question I'm going to ask is, the first question I'm going to answer is, what does it look like to feel emotionally blocked? And so, what I want to talk about is how it feels. Because sometimes we can physically understand it. Maybe things aren't going the way that you want them to. Maybe you didn't get the job that you're looking for or the relationship that you're looking for, that sort of thing. But how does it feel? Because I believe that feelings are indicators of the things that's going on in our lives, right? So anything that kind of brings our frequency lower, then we need to pay attention to, right? And so it could be high level emotions like depression and anxiety, or it could be emotions like irritability, just being frustrated, feeling a bit scared, feeling risk averse, that sort of thing. But being emotionally blocked can also mean that you're lacking some sort of clarity in your life. And it could feel like being stuck in old patterns and behaviors that you can't seem to separate from. You want to move forward, but something keeps pulling you back. You keep trying to move forward, and again, you keep being pulled back. Or there's this itch, you have this itch that something needs to be different versus what is currently being presented to you right now in your life. And you're not sure where to start, how to start, or what to do first, what to do next, that sort of thing. So it may look and feel that way when you are feeling emotionally blocked. I believe like emotional blockages are like this tension that keeps us from being able to perform at our highest potential and to be our best selves. And it might look like, which I get this a lot with my clients, is like finding your voice to really express the things that you want to say, finding your voice to say the things that you need from those around you in your life, and also just need professionally, right? The things that you want to create and how you want to earn a living. But being emotionally blocked are like the suppressed or repressed emotions that we just haven't dealt with, things that we've been subtly ignoring for long periods of time in our lives. And what happens over time is when you suppress or you don't deal or manage things, you wake up one day and you're like, holy smokes, like things are not where I would like them to be. And so these belief patterns hold you back from actually you seeing for things how they are. But there is something good about being stuck, and I'm going to get that to a little bit later. I'm just going to share a brief story with you about my own personal life, of like when I started to feel a little bit just like, it's such a long-winded story, but in 2011 was like my first kind of like awakening of feeling like, okay, something needs to be different, something needs to change. And that was actually with my weight. And so I went on a weight loss journey. I lost 80 pounds. But then even doing that, sometimes when we like change one thing, all we're doing is peeling back the onion, right? And then I found myself like, okay, professionally, like things just didn't seem right. I just kept getting that itch. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And from that itch, I found myself quitting my job. I was just not happy. And then going off and exploring and trying a lot of different things, which were totally outside of my comfort zone, but I knew something had to be different. And when you're feeling stuck like that, what are the things that you can experiment with that could lead you to the next thing? And I believe the opposition of feeling stuck is just gaining momentum. The more that you take action, you gain more momentum, and then you get further clarity in your life. But if you don't take any action, then you will not have clarity. And so often we kind of like want the results first before we actually take the action, and it just doesn't work that way. So taking action, making those decisions will help bring forward momentum in your life. And the more that I did things, even if it was like totally like I did real estate and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I taught English abroad. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So you might be finding yourself doing things that are totally opposite from what you were trained in, what you learned. But by doing those things, you rediscover things about yourself and you bring a little bit of a spark back into your life. So whenever you're feeling a little bit stuck, experiment and find different ways to experiment. And often a lot of my clients, they're a little scared about experimenting. So I always encourage them, in what micro ways, like what are the small possible ways that you can start doing some of these things in a way that doesn't like totally shift you off course or feel very overwhelming or scary for you. All right. So when I said earlier, like feeling stuck is a good thing. And what I mean by that is because it's feedback. It means that you're alive. It means like you're recognizing that there needs to be a change in your life. You can hear the airplanes. We are under a flight path. So every so often, planes just start flying overhead. So when you're feeling stuck, it's a notification in your heart that says, okay, things need to be different. So don't beat yourself up if you're starting to feel like that, even if you felt like it for a while. We often do beat ourselves up about that, like, oh, I'm so stuck. But it's actually a really good thing, because often a lot of people don't even like recognize that they're in this stuck old pattern or a stuck way of living. So the fact that you recognize it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so another question I have is like, okay, so how does your life will look if you weren't stuck or feeling all those things? And that's usually a question I push back to my clients so that they can reimagine and dream what a life would look like for them, because each person's personal experience is going to be like so different, right? and their visions are going to be different. But in general terms, like when you're not feeling stuck, when you feel like you're kind of, you've got this rhythm going, I say your life moves like a symphony. It's like you move in harmony. And so that harmony and alignment, that's when you recognize that you're really not that stuck, when things are in alignment for you. We often want things to be good all the time, but they don't necessarily have to be good all the time. They just have to feel in alignment. And so when you feel in alignment, you feel more secure in the decisions that you make, right? And we talk a lot about, in my coaching program, is like, how do you make those types of decisions? And also we go back a little bit to figure out what gets in the way of you making those decisions, right? Because there are these barriers that are preventing you from making those types of decisions in your life, so that you can actually move forward. And once you get to that root, man, I'm telling you, it's just like one decision after the other. And so when you're not feeling stuck, you feel more empowered. You feel more empowered to take control of your life. You feel more empowered to make more decisions. And you actually begin to have more control over your feelings. And I had talked about this. If you haven't joined my newsletter, definitely join, because I leave a lot of tips about like how to move through a lot of this stuff. A lot of people like to say, I can't control my feelings. And you actually can. And I think and I know the difference is it's regulation. It's like, how do I regulate my feelings, which is a much better question to ask. And you can learn that. All these things are learnable. And so when you're not stuck, you learn how to regulate your emotions. Because when we're constantly emotionally reactive, then we can't really think clearly. We create a bit more drama in our lives, and then it just becomes like one thing after another that doesn't serve us, right? And so from being able to regulate and control our feelings, it's because we've become a witness in our lives, an observer. So there's a difference between like being really proactive and also being a witness, witnessing yourself as you move through some of these processes. Because when you're able to witness, you create the space between the stimulus and the response. And so something has stimulated you in a way, whether it's positive or negative, and then you're left to make a decision to react a certain way. And so when you have more space in between that, you think clearly and things kind of harmonize way better. But if you don't have that space and you're constantly emotionally reactive and you're kind of like just going, and it creates a lot more tension than there needs to be in your life. And so when you're not stuck, you progress, you move forward, and you focus more on the journey. And we get really caught up with like, I want to be here. And the more that you get caught up with wanting to be here, you do not plant your feet in the present moment. And that impacts you in a way that you're not able to make the best decisions, right? So if you think about, if you explore and be in the journey, the future, the destination will work itself out. So what are the things that you can do to kind of like be here along the journey? And which ways can you kind of like enjoy this flow, this movement? And I think for me, I believe the reason why we can't enjoy the journey is because we have one foot in the past and then one foot in the present. And so you can't do that. You can't do both. And so that will disrupt what's happening to you in the present. And when you're not feeling stuck, you don't get bound by people's expectations, right? You redefine what those expectations are for you. And you ultimately just redefine and redesign your life. And that takes a lot of shifting. And the reason it takes a lot of shifting is because you have to change your belief systems. And that's a lot of the stuff that we talk about in my coaching programs. Like, how do you change those belief systems in a way that works for you so that you can design the life that you want to live, which is 100% possible. But it requires you eliminating or removing the social conditioning that has been plaguing us for years and years and years, right? Another question that I have is, what do I need to do to stop reflecting on my past? And this is a big one, and it's not something I can answer like in like 5 minutes. But what I will say is, Part of the reason that you continue to reflect on your past is because you want something to be different. And I want that to sink in a little bit. And I believe the reason why we struggle with a lot of different things is because we want things to be different, and we're avoiding recognizing like this is how the situation is today. So when you go through the process, and it's a whole process to kind of like grieve and to accept, and when I say accept, it doesn't mean that you accept the things that happen to you as like it's your fault or things like that nature, but you can't change that. So part of understanding that you can't change something that happens in the past is you accepting that it's unchangeable. Now these things have happened, so now that I know, what will I do differently moving forward? So when you can wrap your head around the fact that this cannot be different, which means, all right, we're back. I'm currently in Colombia, Medellin. When you're living overseas, sometimes the connection, it is what it is. So I just want to share a quick story with you guys about, I had gotten reacquainted with my father when I was 23, and I wanted things to be different. I wanted this, like, I had this vision. I imagined our relationship to be a certain way. And when I didn't get that expectation, when that expectation was not met, I stopped talking to him for like 4 years. And so I had to go through the process of like forgiveness and accepting him for who he was. And that was it. We were able to kind of like reestablish a relationship, not the kind of relationship that I would have liked and hoped. But you have to remember, people cannot give you what they don't have themselves, what they can't give to other people. And once you recognize that, you go through the process of giving yourself what it is that you need. So I want you to keep that in mind, that the reason why you might find yourself struggling is because you want things to be different. And so ask yourself, what if things will never be different? How can I continue to live my life and still meet my needs and still achieve all the things that I want to achieve, regardless of this discrepancy, right? I mean, it's more than a discrepancy, but regardless of this thing that I want to be different. All right, the next question I have is, what is a theracoach? I kind of, I had a client who was just like, oh, you're my theracoach. And I was like, oh, is that what that is? And so I just kind of adopted it. I'm clinically trained as a therapist, but I operate as a coach now. And the reason that I do that is because it allows me a lot more flexibility to do the things that I want to do with my clients, to do the kind of work, the deep work that I want to do with my clients. Being a therapist is a lot of regulations, which makes sense. But if I wanted to work with somebody in California, and I'm licensed right now in the Maryland area, I would not be able to. So there's limitations to that. So for me to work with a lot more people, I call myself a coach. That's all. And without going too much in depth, therapists spend a lot of time in the past, and coaches will spend a lot of time helping you gain forward momentum so that you could change your present moment, so you ultimately can change your future. I'm not saying therapists don't work in that nature. I'm just saying a lot of therapists spend a lot of time in the past. So I kind of bridge those two worlds so that we can get a lot of forward momentum as quickly as we can, emotionally. And the last question I have as we wrap this up is, will I ever find happiness? And this question is a doozy, and I'm gonna do my best to kind of like answer this question in a very short amount of time. So the question, happiness sounds like something that you have to chase and find. And that's why it's always fleeting. And I'm sure you might hear this a lot. You just can't pursue happiness. You can just be in the joyful moments. And you also have to understand that life ebbs and flows. And so when life dips, how can you stand firm? Where in your tool belt can you find ways to find and be grounded? And part of social conditioning is we're taught to look outside for things when we have everything inside of us that we need to be who we want to be and to live the lives that we want to live. We need to rediscover them, because social conditioning has spent so much time burying a lot of that stuff, right? Making us forget and keeping that away from us. So yes, I don't like to use happiness because it's just it's something that just goes and ebbs and flows. But you can be in a joyful state, and even in the face of uncertainty, even in the face of really difficult challenges, when you've built the resilience, once you've built ways in which you can deal with your emotions, those moments when life gets hard, you are able to stand firm in a way that it doesn't completely derail you. And what I mean by that is, like, before I started doing a lot of work on myself, every little bit of things that happened, I was like, it took me a little while to recover. It really did. A few months, a few years. But once you start doing the work, you find yourself really bouncing back a lot quicker. Or being able to find the strength to work through a lot of that stuff without using old defense mechanisms, old patterns, old ways of being to shut, whether you're shutting down, avoiding, you actually can face a lot of those things and move through them. So I believe that everyone has the ability to live a life that is joyful, to live a life that is thriving consistently, and to live a life on their terms that they've designed with their own personal expectations.